And
Thank you.
Rochelle.
Rochelle.
Hi, everyone. I'm home, but we're back in the office and fixing our masks up to be distributed.
Thank you.
So-
Now, is there anybody I missed who's a guest or a central committee member? Okay, great. All right. So I apologize. Whoops. I apologize for that. How did that happen? Apologize, that was a little choppy, but it's hard sometimes to see through the participants list because people jump around. Okay, next we'll take up approval of the agenda. And before we do that, I want to make note of one thing I did on here that is a little different than in the past, trying to make this go smoother. So you'll see the names on the consent agenda of the people who have submitted these reports on the consent agenda. These are reports that do not require action. If you want to say something briefly, okay, like 2 minutes, that's it. You can say that about the what's on the consent agenda. So that's why I put your names by it, because some have written reports and some don't, okay? So briefly, if you want to talk about the consent agenda, either raise your hand or tell me in the chat. It's always better to tell me in the chat because I see that better than I see raise your hand. Okay. So I will now entertain a motion to approve the agenda. I will now entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I second.
Okay, seconded by Pam. It was moved by, I heard Dave Shoemaker. All right, discussion of the agenda. Anything that you want to add or take off the agenda?
Madam Chair,
Yes, Susie?
this is Susie. Sorry, could you blow it up a little bit so I can
Oh,
see it?
sure.
Thank you.
There we go. Is that better?
Yes, thank you very much.
Okay, sorry about that. Okay.
No problem.
Okay, are there any additions or subtractions or anything on the agenda as written here? Okay, so all in favor of adopting the agenda signify by saying aye.
Madam Chair,
Something in the chat. Someone put something in the chat. Mark Hoffman put something in the chat.
You did?
Yes, he did.
Let's see.
and I
don't see it, Erwin.
He
I mean,
said,
Aaron.
I'd like to
Jesus.
discuss the voter protection plans for the election.
What?
He said he wants to talk. Mark Hoffman wants to talk.
Yeah, we're going to get to that. I want to adopt the agenda first. All right, so all those, Susie, did you have something else?
I just wanted to say we just got the Rules Committee report and I think one other right before the meeting began. So do we need a chance to review those before?
The Rules Committee report was sent out on Sunday.
It was? Okay, I
Yes.
missed that. I
It wasn't-
apologize.
When we get to the, I mean, you know what, yeah, the rule, I believe all of these reports on this list, and some of them don't have reports, were sent out on Sunday with the exception of the election task force, which I did not do a written report, but we can do an oral report.
Mhm.
And the treasurer's report just came in. So
Okay, that's the other
only
one.
two. Yeah, those were the only two.
Okay, and that's not on this agenda. I'm sorry, I'm flipping between screens.
All right, I am now,
Okay.
I am
Thank you.
now gonna take a vote on adopting the agenda. That's what we're talking about now, okay? So is there any further discussion on the agenda? All in favor of adopting the agenda signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? All right, now we have the agenda. Now I'm gonna go down briefly the consent agenda and ask if the people who are, whose names are indicated here have anything to add. And again, 2 minutes. That's what it is, 2 minutes. Secretary's report, anything to add, Erwin?
No.
Thank you. And I assume that's the same on the executive board summary. Communications committee, anything, Michael?
No.
Okay, thanks. Rules committee, anything to add, Juan?
No, it's in the report.
Thank you. Finance committee, anything to add?
I'd just like to call everyone's attention to the fact that we did the analysis of where we came out on our 6-month budget for the first half of 2020. Overall, we came out very close to where we thought we would be. And so I encourage you to take a look at that. Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks, Dave. Voter engagement report, anything, Marie or Jasmine?
Nothing to add.
Thank you. I know Mark wants to talk about voter protection, so I'm gonna just go down the list, Mark, and I'll come back. Partnership and outreach, Pam, anything to report?
No, our notes are captured in the executive board meeting report.
Thank you. Precinct organization report, Trudy or Dave, anything to add there?
I won't try and summarize. We're busy and getting busier, and I'll leave it at that.
Okay. Shruti, anything?
No, I don't have anything.
Okay, great, thanks. Labor Advisory Committee, anything to add, Lori?
Yeah, just less than 2 minutes. I just want to say that we had a very successful event called Hearing Our Heroes with the Labor Committee union members and the elected official, the congressional delegation. And I'd like to say thank you to Linda for her leadership on that, and especially big thank you to Michael Tardif, who's a hero himself, for pulling it all together. So if you were able to attend, I thank you for your support.
Thanks, Lori. It was a great event. The election task force, Scott, do you have anything to say on that?
No.
No, neither do I at this point. We have not been meeting as much as we had been meeting in the past. We're going to start picking it up again, so we'll have more to talk about. We spent most of our time on the election task force talking about the conduct of the election and the governor's letter and our meeting with the state legislators, which you all know about. So, so anyway, that's that. All right, back to voter protection. Mimi or Mark?
Hi. Yeah, I think it's important that we talk about the voter protection plans in case anybody has anything to say about them, because it'd be better to talk about it now than, you know, on October 15th. Now that the relative plans for the election have been settled, it's easier for us to discuss what the actual plans might be. So one thing that's very important is that in the June 2nd election, it turned out to be very important to have observers at the polls. And now it seems that we will have the early voting starting on the 29th, and then about 36 polling places on the actual election day. And so we plan to have to call for volunteers who will actually do observing of the polls. I figure with about 36 on election day, 10 or 15 people will be quite sufficient. But if anybody has any objection to that, we should now. We did, by directly observing, we uncovered quite a few things about the June 2nd election, and also the governor's proclamation for the June 2nd election allowed certain things to be done by video, particularly monitoring canvas. The canvas was, but monitored by video was really completely inadequate. But in any case, there is no proclamation which allows video monitoring. So that would mean direct monitoring. Now, the State Board of Elections has moved the time of counting up, so we don't have to wait till after Election Day, which is very important.
Okay, how long is this going to go on?
Well,
I said 2 minutes.
well, but my intention was ask for it to be moved off the consent agenda. I know it wasn't taken that way, but I do think a discussion is appropriate.
Can we discuss this when we discuss the election? Is there an action item here?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
So here is the report.
But
It doesn't include any of this, but here is the report.
well, this was before the governor.
I know, it doesn't, I'm talking about the report that you submitted. Here's the
Right.
report. This is what we're going to adopt on the consent agenda.
So, Linda, as far as action items,
We're not going to do that now, Mark.
I know, but I'm just saying what we're looking forward to is that at the end of the meeting, we can go forward with whatever strategy for voter protection, the MCDCC deems and the
Okay.
things left hanging.
All right, that's not an agenda item on our agenda, but we can certainly talk about it when we talk about the election. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the main agenda. Hold on. Let me see. Oops. There we go. Okay. There we are. All right, so we have, whoops, shoot, sorry about that. There we have those reports there. And I'm going to ask that we adopt the consent agenda. And what we will do is when we get down to the Board of Elections, we'll have a discussion about the issues that Mark wanted to talk about. I would just say that in the future, if you have action items, they need to be given to us in a report so that we can add them to the agenda. I don't really want to take up things that are just sprung on us at the last minute here, okay? So can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So move.
Moved by
Second. Oops,
Dave.
sorry.
Seconded by Susie. I'm sorry, I forgot. Dave, did you want to say something quickly? You had put that in the chat.
Well, really quick, to go back to Mark's comments, I just want to say I think that I'm hoping that the precinct leaders will, some of them want to play a role in monitoring the voting centers. And so I really think that discussion of monitoring the voting centers can be taken up in our precinct organization steering committee discussions.
Good. Okay. Well, like I said, we're going to discuss that when we discuss the Board of Elections item. And thank you for noting that. Okay. All in favor or any other discussion on the consent agenda? All in favor of adopting the consent agenda signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, good. Now we're going to move to the treasurer's report. Let me see if I can find this on here. Okay, I'm trying to monitor the chat, folks, but it's tough, okay, because I'm also trying to go through these reports. Let's see. What am I? I'm going to stop sharing here. Bear with me a second. This is all over the place. Trying to keep up with it. Oh, come on. Now my computer won't move. All right. So I'm getting the treasurer's report up here. Okay. There we go. All right. There we are. All right. Treasurer's report. Okay. So the treasurer's report, Dave isn't here. He's on vacation. He just sent a note saying he's on vacation. It slipped his mind, but he did submit this report. This is a very brief report, but it does indicate where we are here. So, so we have current assets, as you can read, of $10,072 in the non-federal account or the state account. We have $41,681 in the federal account and $377 in the administrative account for a total of $52,000. I'm sorry, $52,089.29. in all of our accounts, and we have $15,493 in club funds. So we're, holding even there. We're holding steady. We'll talk a little bit about the masks and the fundraising that's produced. That's later on in the agenda. Federal compliance, the federal second quarter report was submitted on time. There have been no requests for additional information. The next one's due October 15th. I think Dave Shoemaker mentioned the last time we have been working closely with our compliance consultant and the finance committee to make sure that all of those filings are good. And so far, so good. I mean, we've been doing pretty well. The next state report is due on August 25th. So that basically is the finance report. Here are the bank statements, but they just reflect what I iterated as the balances. Oh, that's nothing. You can look at those because Dave sent them to all of us. So I'll take a motion to accept the finance report.
Can I just make a comment, please, Madam Chair?
Sure, go ahead, Aaron.
And I say this with great regret because I have great affection for our treasurer, and I know he has a very busy job, but if there's any way that you could work with him to ensure that the treasurer's report is sent in a more timely fashion, that would be greatly appreciated, because I understand he's on vacation this week, but this is not the first time that it comes very late, and we can't do our fiduciary duty if it comes late, and I know he juggles many things, but if you could work with him on that, I'd greatly appreciate it.
Point well taken. And Erwin and I both flog him to get them in early, and we don't get them in. So,
just talk to him.
Yeah, I will. I'll tell him it came up at the meeting. So, okay, let me go back.
To approve the treasurer's report.
Oh, thank you. Is there a second? We're not approving, we accept the treasurer's report, okay? Because there's nothing to approve, it is what it is. Is there a second to accept the treasurer's report?
I second.
Seconded by Shoemaker. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you. No opposition, but somebody clearing their throat. Thank you. All right, now we're going to take this a little bit out of order than we normally do, and but we're going to do it this way tonight. So now we're going to go to the precinct official review. Shruti, we have the review and approve lists, and if you, I'm going to go get those and put them up on the screen. What do you want to take first, Shruti? The approve list? Hello?
I think she might be on mute.
Shruti, what do you want to take first? The approve list?
Yeah, sorry, my computer was stuck.
All right, just do it. Okay, the approve list.
So, yeah, is there, does anybody have any questions for the?
All right, let me see. Am I sharing that? Not yet. Let me get back here. Oh, man, what a pain. Okay. Let's see. Let me share the screen. There we go. There's the approve list. Okay. Anything you want to say about it, Shruti?
No, unless anybody has any questions about that. There are no changes to the approve list.
Okay. So all in favor of, I will take a motion to approve. I'm sorry. I'll take a motion to approve the approve list.
So move the approved list.
It's moved by Greg. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Daniel. Any discussion on the approved list? All in favor of adopting the approved list signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Okay, great. Next is the review list.
There is an edit to the review list.
Okay.
And I would like to get one name added to it. It's from District 16. I will circulate the revised list It's Kate Miley, who has applied to be the chair of Bethesda Chevy Chase High School, precinct 07008, recommended by Chuck Casper, and Dave Shoemaker has approved it as well.
Okay.
I'd like that added to the review list, please.
Okay, thank you. Are there any, I will now take a motion to approve the review list.
So moved.
Moved by Susie. Is there a second?
Second, Aaron.
Seconded by Aaron. Thank you. Any further discussion on the review list? Or any
Can you
questions?
repeat the name of the addition again, please?
Yes, sure. Kate Miley.
Miley.
Okay.
Could you repeat the precinct number for me?
Yes, 07008, Bethesda Chevy Chase High School, and she's applying to be the chair.
Okay, any further questions or discussion on the review list? All right, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? All right, thank you.
Thank
Now,
you.
thank you, Shruti. Now, I would just like to put something out there that has been brought to my attention and suggested actually at the executive board meeting. It is maybe reflected in the executive board summary. And that is something we should give consideration to, and that is making campaign appointments, which our bylaws allow us to do, to some of these vacant precinct slots. So I think, when we were in person, Shruti and Dave were preparing lists for all of the central committee members, particularly those who represent districts, to bring to their attention where there were vacancies. So I think it might be useful between now and the September meeting for us to, again, generate that list, Shruti, that we can distribute, and then think about where we might want to make some campaign appointments.
Okay.
And as I understand it, and Moomin or somebody else who is more conversant in this than I am, as I understand it, we can make temporary appointments in precincts as precinct leaders for the campaign. So if we think we're going to need some help, it would be good to identify some of those precincts, and then we can go out and really recruit some people to take those jobs temporarily. Do I have that right, Moomin?
Yes. And yeah, it's a temporary appointment.
Right.
Don't we want to see which precincts are open though first, Madam Chair? Since
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So Dave and Shruti can prepare that list. Yes, Dave.
Yeah, so that's something that I had been doing, and I've kind of slacked off and started doing it every other month. Yeah, and Susie is reacting to that, so I beg your pardon. I'm happy to get that out to y'all within the next few days, and we would really, really love to have our central committee members play an active role in helping us fill these vacancies temporarily or on a permanent basis, or whatever you can do. Now's the time, because as you know, things are heating up. And so I will undertake to get that out to everyone within, certainly by the weekend, if not before.
Right. Okay, great.
And Linda, real quick, one comment.
Go ahead,
One of the conversation I had with the Maryland Democratic Party, because they've had many volunteers from Montgomery County who have signed up for the virtual phone banks, is to get those names, so that from Justin, and I think he's on the call, that would be helpful to have, because those people are already really engaged, and if we get their precinct, we can ask them to be precinct leaders. So I'll follow up on that and share the information with Dave as well.
Susie? Susie, did you have something you wanted to say? Go ahead.
We have that information from the 2016 or 2018 campaign or election. So we should be able to share that with you, Shruti.
Okay,
Is that
thank
not-
you.
Do you recall, Linda, if we can, or Michael, if we can isolate that data?
Oh, from Van, you mean?
Yeah,
Yeah, I can do it from WAN. I'm aware of that, but we had talked about, because many volunteers are coming out of the volunteer engagement sessions who've been regularly making phone calls.
right.
And so that's a much shorter list, and it's just easier to, and generally we get the list from the volunteer engagement session, but they've also received names from making phone calls. So just a
Yeah.
quick check to see.
Right.
You just,
It's been a real fight in the past to get that information. So hopefully it won't be such a fight this time.
yeah, couple of additional comments. One is if anybody wants to jump on this right tonight after we finish the meeting, I did produce the report last month. So if you can go to last month's documents, you will see, and it, you know, let's face it, doesn't change that much month to month. So you're welcome to go back for a quick snapshot to last month's material. And also encourage Central Committee members to coordinate with their district representatives on the Precinct Organization Steering Committee. Those representatives have all been given the list of volunteer engagement attendees from their district so that they've been in a position to possibly follow up. So, you know, if we could get some collaboration going here between committee members and Central Committee members and Precinct Organization Committee members, that would be fabulous. So thank you.
Yeah, and Shruti, I mean, not Shruti, Susie, I'm having trouble with names tonight. It's not just Irwin. Susie put in the chat.
Evan.
Man, woman, person, TV, camera. Okay, I'm good. Susie put in the chat. Filling these positions is part of the job description for MCDCC members. It's not up to Dave and Shruti to do all the work. Amen to that. So we do need some help here. Okay, we do need some help here. All right. Anything else on that? We're going to try to do those campaign appointments. Once we figure out what we want the precinct leaders to do during the election, given the way it is. Okay, so that's under the review and approve list. And now we're going to move to committee reports and the ballot questions advisory committee. And you'll recall we had some discussion on this at our last meeting. We appointed some members of the committee from the MCDCC. And I'm now going to turn it over to Irwin. And go ahead, Irwin.
Okay, hi everyone. And I'm pleased to note that several applicants to serve on the BQAC are here tonight as observers. So welcome to those of you who are able to join us. So as Linda mentioned, we formally established the BQAC at our July 14th meeting, and with me as chair and 3 other members of the Central Committee, Harold Diamond, Daniel Karoma, and Lori Rodich. Tonight in our report, we're asking you to finalize the composition of the BQAC, and Linda and I are recommending that we approve all 9 applicants who applied to serve on the BQAC in addition to the 4 Central Committee members. I met with the Precinct Organization Steering Committee to discuss the BQAC and encourage precinct officials to apply. And we ran ads in our weekly email newsletter, which was also, of course, posted on the website 3 times on July 17th, 24th, and 31st. As I mentioned, we received 9 applications as a result of that. And I included an Excel spreadsheet with the names and some background information on all 9 applicants in the report that we sent out on Saturday night. I'll get back to that in the end because the action we really need tonight is a motion to approve the membership of the committee. But just since this is a new committee and the time is going to move very quickly, just want to kind of run through very quickly the outline of what needs to be done after we finalize the membership of the BQAC. We will quickly convene. In fact, I've organized an initial organizational meeting for the BQAC this Thursday evening, immediately following the trustees meeting. We have to hold a public hearing. We will, of course, prepare the written report, which will analyze each question that will appear on the ballot. So there'll be the county and state questions, and it will provide summaries and arguments pro, con, and I believe for staying neutral will probably also be included in the report. That report will be distributed by email to all MCDCC members and all precinct organization members. And then we will hold a meeting of the precinct organization, followed immediately the same evening by the central committee. The precinct organization will consider the written BQAC report. Precinct organization will discuss and vote on each of the questions. And then the central committee meeting will consider whether to adopt the precinct organization recommendations. And the central committee can either affirm the precinct organization decisions, in which case that becomes the official position of the Montgomery County Party, or if the central committee fails to adopt any of the precinct organization question recommendations, then the party will remain neutral on that question. But the central committee cannot take an opposite position from what the precinct organization recommends. Just very quickly, what we know right now is basically there will be 2 county charter amendments, each with one question based on a citizen petition and one based on a county council proposal. On county council districts, there is a citizen petition that would change the structure of the council so that there are 9 discrete geographic districts and no at-large districts. The council proposal would have 2 new district-based, geographically based districts. So under the council proposal, you would keep the current 5 districts. Well, they wouldn't be the same. Basically, you'd have, instead of 5 geographically based districts, you'd have 7, and keeping the same number of at-large districts, 4. So moving from a total of 9 to 11 council districts by adding 2 new geographically based districts. And that was a question approved by the council to be included on the ballot. Let me just quickly run through the others, and then we'll decide if we have time to discuss these or not. There's obviously a lot to discuss. I did include the official council memoranda on each of the county questions in the information packet so that everyone has all the official background to be had on these questions, including the texts. On taxes, on county taxes, there's the citizen petition that was initiated and led by Republican Robin Ficker, which basically would prevent the council from ever raising property taxes. So currently, the total revenue collected in property taxes is limited to the rate of inflation, to going up by the rate of inflation. And currently, if all 9 council members agree, they can increase the cap on total revenue to be collected. The proposal approved by the council would basically allow the council to change the property tax rate rather than relying upon the total revenues, but also still maintaining a requirement that all 9 council members would be required to approve any property tax rate increase. On the state questions, as I described at the last meeting, there's one on the state budget, giving the General Assembly the power to make adjustments within the budget proposed by the governor before it's approved. There's a referendum to expand legalized sports betting to generate public revenues, I believe, for education. The first state budget question would be a constitutional amendment. Sports betting would be a statute. And then we have to also verify whether there are any questions on the ballot regarding the retention of state judges, because that is also within the universe of possible ballot questions that the BQAC might study, that the Central Committee might take positions on. If we're ready, I would be happy to go through the list of BQAC members, or if that's not necessary and people have had an opportunity to review the list, we can just entertain a motion to approve the committee membership as proposed in the written report. but if we think there's time, I'm happy to.
Erwin, before we do that, let's take questions first on what you just covered, okay? So you went over the procedure, okay? And basically, I think most Central Committee members know this, but new ones don't. Erwin, it's a rather detailed procedure, and it culminates in a vote by the precinct organization, the precinct chairs and vice chairs, followed by a meeting of the Central Committee where we approve, or as Erwin said, take a neutral position on the agree with the precinct organization or take a neutral position on the ballot questions. So are there any questions about what Erwin went over with respect to the procedure, as well as he also did a good, concise look at what the ballot questions are? Are there any questions about any of that at this stage? Susie.
I have a question.
Well, let me see, Susie and then Harold. Susie.
I disagree with the interpretation of the rules, but I would rather take it up at another time with the Rules Committee first, possibly.
Okay.
I just want to put it on the record that I disagree.
Okay. So noted. Harold?
Erwin, the list of 9 names plus the 4 of us from the Central Committee, does that include this distribution?
Okay, Harold, let's talk about, we're going to get to the list in a sec.
No. I'm not asking about the list specifically. I'm asking about it in general.
Yep.
Are there enough people from each of, is there at least one representative from each of the 8?
Okay, what I want to do, Harold, is talk about, we're going to go to the list in a second. I want to talk about the ballot questions, and then we'll go to the list. All right, are there any questions about that or the procedure at this stage? Okay, Erwin, let's go to the list. And remember Harold's question.
Did Scott have something
Did Scott have something
to say?
When's the public hearing and when's the meeting?
The public hearing? Okay. Erwin, do you want to go over briefly? I'm sorry, Scott, I didn't see your hand there. If you want to go over briefly what you've talked about, because the committee hasn't set it yet, but Erwin has a tentative schedule.
Well, yeah, I mean, our first organizational meeting is going to be on Thursday. So we don't have hard dates other than the fact that the first organizational meeting is on Thursday. I could probably find my notes that show the tentative dates, but I'm not sure it's helpful because we really haven't pinned them down yet.
Yeah, but he's talking about a public hearing this month, right? Public hearing this month, right, Erwin?
Well, yes, ideally we were aiming to finish the report by September 1st. So holding the public hearing probably the week before that so that it could inform the report. Then we finalize the report after the public hearing, approximately September 1st. Then we hold the meeting, sometime ideally close to just 2 weeks after we issue the report. So sort of second to third week of September is the sweet spot for the earliest I think we can hold the precinct organization central committee meeting to establish our positions.
So I know what Scott's going to say, but go ahead, say it.
What are you, can you guess? And then I'll say what I'll say.
I was going to say, you're going to say people are getting their ballots in the mail, probably.
People are getting their ballots in like 60 days. So the more time we get our positions out there, the more influential we are.
Yeah, we know. We know that. We're behind the 8 ball, though, trying to get it all together. I mean, it's a lot of work, right? So.
Tell me about it.
Yeah, you know about it, right?
Yeah, we're basically on the same schedule as 2018. We're slightly ahead of the way this was done in 2018, but it would have been better if we had established the committee a month earlier, but this is the way it played out. And as I said, this is about what happened last year. We're a little bit ahead of last year's pace, but I understand it would have been better to do it earlier, but this is where we are.
Yeah.
So we're now moving at a very compressed schedule, right? We're hopefully finalizing the committee tonight. The committee is going to meet in 2 days on Thursday, with the goal to hold the hearing this month, finalize the report by September 1st. That's a pretty fast pace. Yeah, and then we need to give people 2 weeks to digest the report before we hold the meeting.
Right. Okay. Marie Mapes has a question.
I'm sorry, Erwin, I'm trying to make sure I understand it. When you have the hearing, and is that like when we'll have a draft report to be able to look through, to be able to understand it and discuss in the hearing?
No, so in fact, we don't even have the final text of the ballot questions yet. So actually, as I think about it, there's a reason why we end up going at this pace, because in fact, I think it's August 15th when the final certification of the county questions text is going to be done. So in fact, from a legal official point of view, we don't even have finally approved text for the questions. So the idea of the hearing is that the text of the questions will be out, but we would not have a draft report at that time. People would have to rely on the actual questions. It will inform the preparation of the report, but I don't think we'll be able to float a draft report in advance of the hearing. We can consider that. Maybe it would be helpful to provide some kind of a summary of the questions to inform the hearing. We can think about that. But what's been done in the past was not to issue a draft report, but to hold the hearing, and that informs the final report.
Yeah, I think the hearing, the public hearing helps inform the report. And then the report goes to the precinct organization. Is that right, Erwin?
Yeah, and that's the way it's been done. But it would be probably a nice way to do it, to have a draft report for people to respond to or comment on. But I don't think that's been done in the past, and I don't promise that we'll be able to do that this time. But the questions will be out there. But we can think about whether we can produce some kind of a very short draft of a report.
Thanks, Erwin.
Okay.
Yeah, and thank you, Erwin, for taking this on. You all hear what a bear this is. Yeah, I agree with you, Susie. Okay, any other questions of Erwin on this part of it before we go to the list of additions, and then to Harold's question? I haven't forgotten, Harold. Anything else on what Erwin brought up here? Okay, good. So let's go to go ahead, Erwin. I have the list up on the screen now, as you can see.
Okay, so I'm unmuted, right?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, so as everybody can see, there are different ways to slice and dice, but the way I prepared this list was first to show the 4 Central Committee members. So that's Harold from District 19, Daniel from District 20, Lori is at large from District 14, I'm at large from District 18. Then we have 7 precinct organization members: Teresa Baker, Vice Chair of Precinct 1340 from District 18. I won't say the precinct numbers, that doesn't mean anything to most people. Teresa Baker from District 18, Linda Bergen from District 15, Sharon Cranford from District 39, Sheldon Fishman from District 18, Elliot Greenwald from District 16, Jim Michaels was approved just now as a new precinct chair in District 16. Stephen Chavone is here as an observer from District 20. And then the 2 members who are not Central Committee members and not precinct organizations, I believe they're both here on the line as observers tonight. That's Scott Farnan from District 18 and Corey Hartwich from District 18.
Okay, so Harold asked about coverage of the districts. Do you want to address that, Erwin?
So we have Lori from 14. We have Linda from 15. We have Elliot and Jim from 16. We have myself, Scott, and Corey from 18, and Teresa from 18, so several from 18. We have Daniel from 20. We have Sharon from 39. So there are 2, by my count, I think there are 2 legislative districts that are not represented. Let me cross-check that.
One, I think.
I think there's just one.
I think there's
17.
one.
17. Yeah.
And let me just say that We did our best to get geographic representation here. The thing is that we put this out through the precinct steering committee. Erwin came to the precinct steering committee where all of the districts are represented, made a presentation, made a pitch. Dave and Trudy made a pitch. We made several outreaches in the newsletter. And it was Erwin and my feeling that, you know, we did pretty well in terms of, you know, geographic representation. It's true that there's one district that's not represented, but considering the constraints that are on this committee, i.e. that we have to have a majority of precinct organization people on the committee, this is about as good as we can get, I think, in the current circumstances. Anyway, I just wanted to say that because I know Erwin worked really hard to try to recruit people, as did I, as did Dave and Trudy. And we had a number of people step forward who are very anxious to do this. And I think we'll make a really great committee. So Harold, was there anything else you wanted to add to your question? I see your hand, Susie.
The only thing that I was trying to impress is that when I took over the ballot question committee 8 years ago or whatever it was, I had seen that the prior one to me had 7 people from Leisure World and District 19 to the exclusion of at least 4 or 5 other districts. And I sent it back out and said, we're going to just take on more people because this is really the precinct organization speaking in part for each of their districts so that there's a flavor not dominated by the central committee. I'm glad that this is a fairly wide dispersion of people right now. I don't know some of the people. I do know the names and what they do of others. When you put it out, I was hoping that you may want to add something to that listing as to a sentence, no more than a sentence, of what they've done for the party so that we get an idea. Are these really people representing the various segments of the county? Thank you.
Thank you. Susie?
I see that we weren't able to recruit someone from District 17. I am concerned that we are heavily represented by down county members. Up county, we have Harold, Lori, perhaps Linda Bergen, I'm not sure where she is, Sharon Cranford.
Linda is District 15.
Yes, and that's a widespread district.
She lives, I know where she lives. She lives
Okay.
In North Potomac.
Okay, so we'll count that as up county. I would like to have seen a few more up county people just because the 9 district question is so affected by the people up here. Let me understand how this is going to work. I thought you said there were going to be 9 people on the committee or 9 members other than?
No.
9 plus 4. It's 4 central committee members and 9 additional members, 7 of whom are from the precinct organization.
Okay.
And let me also say there were 4 members of the BQAC in 2018.
I remember that.
Let me also just remind everyone that the BQAC will not make its own recommendations. The BQAC just prepares a report that outlines arguments pro and con and neutral. It, in fact, will not make a recommendation.
So if I may continue, so it's the 7 plus the 2. The distinction here is that the 7 are some kind of precinct official and these other 2 gentlemen are not.
Right.
Got it.
And
Okay.
And the rules state that there has to be a majority from the precinct organization.
Right. Okay. Well, I would ask everybody to keep the up county in mind as you do your research. Thank you.
Lori.
Yeah, I just would like to say that I saw that there was a gap with 17 and that there was a little bit of underrepresentation up county. But both Erwin and I are at-large members of this committee and take it very seriously that we represent the entire county in our seats, not just our district. That we represent our districts, but we also are there for the other for the rest of the community as well. And so that didn't, and given the fact that we don't make recommendations, we just report, I was very comfortable with what I saw and would like to go on the record as saying thank you, Erwin, for doing such a masterful job. This was a tough haul and you really pulled it off well.
Thank you.
Moomin.
Yeah, going back to Susie's remarks earlier, I'm left with the feeling that maybe we're violating some rule, and that's not a good place to be. So, Madam Chair, I would like to really get a little more clarity from Susie. What rule? I mean, if we're going to go this route and we're going forward, I don't want us to be looking back sometime down the road if there's any rule that we need to be thinking about, Susie.
Yeah, well, no, I think what Susie was saying, and I think he's referring to the earlier conversation.
Yeah, the earlier
and
comment.
I think, yeah, what Susie was talking about was, I don't know what rule she was talking about, but she thinks that the rules need to be changed. Not that we're,
oh, okay.
I didn't hear her say, correct me if I'm wrong, that we're violating a rule, but that you think the rules need to be changed.
Well, she said I disagree.
I was talking about the interpretation of the rules, but you know, we'll stick with the status quo unless there's some reason not to. And you know, at this point, there's no reason not to.
Okay.
In my opinion, going by the rules as they are set and following them, which obviously hadn't been done in a number of years in the early 21st century, that it was my intent to make sure that those rules represented a dispersion of people around the county. And I think that the omission of having somebody from District 17 belies that. Each district has approximately the same number of voters and Democrats in each of those districts, one to the next. And that's why I asked my original question about, are we representing all the districts and not having 5 or 6 people from one place? It's a fairly good distribution. I would like to see, as everybody else is implying, District 17 get somebody on there and maybe another person from 39. But that's beside the point. The thing is, follow the rules and you'll get a fairly good distribution. If there is an issue that is good for one portion of the county than another, that is to say, it's better for one portion of the county than another for some of the other ballot questions, a good distribution ought to be able to wipe out any prejudices that this is the rich up county, or this area or that area, down county or whatever.
Just to be clear, thank you, Harold. And just to be clear for everyone, there is no rule requiring that there be someone from every legislative district on the VQAC.
I'm aware of that.
Yeah, I didn't want to create a misunderstanding for others.
Right.
Linda, I'd like to say something quickly.
Go ahead, Aaron. I have trouble. Go ahead, Aaron.
First thing I'd like to do is make a motion to approve the list.
Thank you. Moved by Aaron. Let me get a second. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by several.
The second.
Moomin.
Seconded by Moomin. Okay. Thank you, Moomin.
No, I wanted to say that ideally, you know, it'd be great to have somebody from District 17, but I think it's on District 17 that there isn't anybody because Irwin said they had 11 applicants and they accepted everybody. So I agree with people's desire, but I think it says more about District 17 than it says about us. And so I think it's important to remind ourselves that Irwin said that they accepted everyone who applied. So you snooze, you lose, kind of.
Right. All right, any further discussion? And let me just say as part of the discussion that, because we have several of the folks who stepped up here at the meeting, and Irwin has already communicated with this group on a preliminary basis or a tentative basis, I would say, pending their approval. And I just want to say thank you to all of these folks who stepped up. This is a tremendous amount of work that goes into this. Of course, Irwin and the Central Committee members, Harold, Daniel, Lori, who are also contributing to this. This is a tremendous amount of work. And this is not, some show committee where you get to, you get to go and, everybody stand up at a meeting and everybody applauds and, that's it. This is real work that goes into this. So I do want to say to those who are here and those who are not, to everybody who volunteered, thank you very much for doing that. And I agree with what Irwin and Aaron and Scott said in the chat, and others, Lori, that this is a great group and it's exciting that we have this many people who want to do this. I mean, you heard last time we had 4, right? So this is terrific.
I remember that.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I would just like to add, while it's true that we're not going to have a decision until towards the middle, maybe late September, and people will start voting. So we have to be very careful that, we not to convey any party position until we have a formal party position. But I do hope that the BQAC can be a nucleus working through everyone here tonight as, really the nucleus of discussion within the Democratic Party. And that as we all educate ourselves, I hope members and observers will also follow this process, educate yourselves, and you can be influencers in terms of educating, people you're interacting with throughout the season, while being careful to not convey a party position until we have one in your personal capacity, informally, or just as a matter of discussion and education. These are really important questions that will have a huge impact on our county and state governance for years to come. And previous ballot questions that were passed in opposition to the eventual party position have had a real impact in changing the nature of our tax code, et cetera. And so I do hope that you will all educate yourselves, follow this discussion, and not wait for the final meeting to kind of spread the word that these questions are on the ballot, they're important, and help explain them to people and help educate people so that we can have an informed democratic vote on these questions, in advance of the final meeting where we have a formal decision. And in addition to any final decision, you can play an important role in spreading the word about these questions without waiting for the final vote. So I do hope that everyone will take the time to do that.
Yeah, thanks. Okay, any further discussion on this? There's a lot in the chat, thanking all of the people, again, echoing from several MCDCC members, Central Committee members, thanking the people who stepped forward to take on this role. And we really appreciate it. Sarah Wallach has a question. How will we share the final party decision with voters? We're going to get to that. Part of that is going to be the sample ballot. That's going to be a big part of it. Marjorie made that point in the chat as well. That will be a big part of it. And we also have a pretty good newsletter that goes out to 47,000 people where we can also advertise our position. So those are 2 important ways in which we'll do that. All right, any further discussion on the establishing the ballot question advisory committee? There's a motion on the floor to approve the members of the ballot question advisory committee as proposed by Irwin. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Okay, carried, thank you. All right,
Thank
now
you,
we're going to go back. Erwin, did you have
Thank
anything
you.
else on BQAC?
No, again, just thank you for your support and your trust. I do hope that everyone will follow these issues and become engaged in your individual capacity and help spread the word to educate voters. And for those of you who are not in the committee, still, please feel free to contact me or anyone on the committee if you want to either find out what's going on or give us your advice.
Okay, thank you. And thanks again, everybody, for taking this on. All right, next on the agenda is the student members report. Juan, do we have anything? Juan, Aline, or Katie, do we have anything to report there?
Yeah, Aline was going to start with it though.
Katie.
Yeah, Aline was going to start by talking about our fellowship. So
okay, go ahead, Aline.
Yes, hi. So first off, I just want to say sorry. My audio is weird. I'm next to a lake right now and there's waves and they're loud.
Don't tell us, that's too much information.
Okay, sorry. Okay, so we dissolved our fellowship because summer's ending, but I think we had a good experience. The fellows really seemed to learn a lot, so thank you to everyone who was involved in that. We learned a lot. I'm hoping to be back next year, so I hope I will be able to bring that back, use what we learned from this year, and kind of also work on bringing it back to what it originally was supposed to be, which was more of a mentorship and less of a program, I guess. Or I guess it's, sorry, wrong words. But yeah, just bringing it back to being a mentorship, which is what we wanted originally, which will help if we have more.
Yeah.
Sorry?
It'll be in person, obviously, and have a lot of, we had to adjust the fellowship a lot to make it online.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and also just like getting more people to apply, which will also be helped by having the Instagram that we have now. So with that, I will pass it to Katie.
Okay, before you pass it to Katie, you just jumped over something really quickly. You said the Instagram we have now. Do you want to talk about that just a little bit?
Yeah, that's what Katie was going to talk about.
Okay, go ahead, Katie.
So we've been working on getting more followers. Right now we have almost 200. And we're working, we reached out to some local officials to try to get them to do an Instagram takeover, which I don't know if you guys know what that is, but I would explain it briefly. It's just people submit questions online. They can pick whichever questions they want, really. They can talk about it and answer them. And pretty much they just go about their day. They film it, they talk to people, talk to the followers, and just go about their day. Right now we have Evan Glass has agreed to do one, Will Tawando, and Senator Will Smith. And then we also have the director or president of the Maryland High School Democrats. We are hopeful to maybe get some more elected officials, maybe some women, maybe you, Linda. But yeah, if you guys have any suggestions, we'd be really excited about that. And hopefully those will be great. And then, Erwin, you mentioned this earlier to Aline, but tonight would be my last meeting since I'm graduating. Aline's still a junior. So.
Congratulations, Katie. Katie is graduating and going where? Where are you going?
I'm going to Ireland. I'm going to Trinity College in Dublin. So leaving America for a bit. But yeah, thank you guys so much. I really learned a lot with the MCDCC. And I definitely want to stay involved. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, Katie. Does anybody have any questions or comments about for our student members? I think Katie and Aline, I think Juan may have talked to you briefly about a project involving the trustees, and we can talk about that more after we talk to the trustees. Daniel Caroma has a question.
Actually, more of a comment. In this unusual time, unprecedented time, I just want to really give a shout out to Katie and Aline for the amazing work. They did not give up. In the midst of the pandemic, they also brought other students on, on board as well. So I just want to say kudos to both of them.
Yeah, agreed. Thank you.
And this is Laura. I had a quick question for Katie and Eileen. I just wanted to ask sort of what the biggest kind of lessons learned were from the work that you did online with fellows, and what things you'll want to sort of how you'll want to take those lessons into the following year and have them adapted. And thanks for the great work that you did despite all the challenges.
So go ahead. Go ahead.
it wasn't as much as we would have wanted to do because we got sort of a late start since COVID hit and we had to like readjust. But I think meeting more often is going to be important. And like also we kind of struggled with like sending out reminders for this meeting, which we wanted them to attend because it's a good learning experience. And I think a lot of them were a little bit iffy about like coming since it's a little bit longer than like a lot of student activists are used to. So I think like emphasizing the importance of like showing up to meetings because I think a lot of them sort of thought of it as not so serious. So maybe if we could get like some more, getting it as more of a mentorship so they can like be more involved with the adults, I think is really important because I think, I mean, Katie, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think since they saw it as sort of we were running it more, they didn't see it as serious as we wanted it to be. But Katie, you can correct me if I'm wrong about that.
No, I definitely agree with that. I think that probably working with the adults more would be more encouraging for them to take it more seriously. I don't know, sometimes someone came on to Zoom call eating once and we were like, oh my God, but yeah, it was a really great experience. I think I really liked the fellows, but I think that maybe if we could work on that and maybe having them be more involved with everyone on the central committee, that would be great.
So Marie Mapes is asking in the chat, what is the Instagram link again?
It is MC_Dems.
And Katie and Aline, I would just say, I mean, I know Aline's not going anywhere, but Katie she's going overseas. So before you two take off, it would be helpful, one, also you could be involved in this. If you had just a conversation with Michael Tardif and make sure that he's up to speed completely on what we're doing with the Instagram account so that we can make sure we have smooth transition to the next student group that comes in.
Yeah, definitely. I think Aline is staying for now though, because she's still here. And I think she would want to run again for next year if the rules are happening.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, we can talk about protocol later, I guess. Yes, I would love to return if you'd have me.
Well, certainly, you know, I can't speak for the committee, but we did love having you this year. Let me put it that way. Anyway, all right. Well, thanks to both of you. And Katie, safe travels. And Aline, I know we'll see you in the future. Anything else for our student members? Okay. Thank you. Now, moving on, we have a little thing called the Board of Elections. So here's what I want to do here, because I do want to have this other meeting, and we are now at 10 to 9. And we do have a few other things we have to go over. What I would like is for Dolly to give her report. And then David Naiman is here to take a few questions. All right, we're only going to do that we're going to give that we'll see where we are, but we're going to give that 10 to 15 minutes, depending upon where we are. And then we'll pick it up again on Friday, and we'll do what we did before. If anybody can't be there on Friday afternoon, late Friday evening, early Friday evening, late Friday afternoon, please submit your questions to me, and we'll ask them to our Board of Election representatives who will be there to answer our questions. So, Dolly.
Okay. This is a report from the July 20th board meeting. And the meeting started with taking off of the agenda the replacement of the executive office building with the Barr Center as one of the early voting sites. There was a lot of interest in that, and it was decided that the executive office building will remain as one of the sites. It was also noted that applications were out for the vote by mail, and there's 2 ways to apply for the applications. Applying online takes you to the state board site, which everyone thinks is complicated, or using the link supplied by the Central Committee, which takes you directly to the application, which you can download, print, fill out, and mail in. The less complicated process seems preferable. However, the local board says the hardest part of dealing with the applications is the handwriting. So they prefer that you do it online. Dealing with the election itself gets more complicated between the meeting and now. From the meeting, all 12 early voting sites will be open. In the primary, there was no early voting and there were 5 precincts open for election day. These precincts had ballot drop boxes throughout the early voting period. For the general election, the board approved purchasing more drop boxes to have one at all the early voting sites. This might not include the executive office building because for security reasons, they don't want a box that large there because of the executive office building and the courthouse. So for election day, the local board said there is no way there are enough judges to staff all the precincts, even though the governor offered state employees 2 days' pay to serve as judges. Our board proposed consolidating the voting sites from around 233 to 70 or 75, using the high schools, middle schools, and county rec centers. This basic idea was included in the state board's recommendations to the governor. The governor was not pleased, but he did not oppose reducing the number of polling places. Our board's proposal was to consolidate the precincts in the vicinity of the polling place. However, the state board is proposing that all voting sites be available to all registered voters, just as they are for early voting. Also, the state proposes that the early voting be reduced to the Thursday before Election Day, October 29th, through Monday, November 2nd. Now, I completed this report this afternoon, and there are already 2 changes. So as Mark pointed out, that the early voting is definitely October 29th to November 2nd, and also that we're only having 36 polling places. So that happened since anything I read. So that's my report.
Sorry about that. Thank you, Dolly.
You're welcome.
David Naiman, do you want to add anything to what Dolly reported?
I'll just add a couple of things. First off, that obviously the process that we're going through now is not the process that we would pick. It's the process that is a delicate balance between what the state board can get the votes for and what the governor will agree to. And we're definitely not done because there's still the question of when we can count the ballots. And our board has unanimously asked to be able to start counting ballots in early to mid-October in order to finish sooner. That has not been addressed by the state board yet. They are scheduled to meet tomorrow. I am one of the people who believes that the state board's website is horribly complicated. Supposedly it's going to be simplified in some fashion. We'll see how much simplified it is. I think you all have done an excellent job of making things easier for people to do. I added in the chat box one additional tip, which is that if you do have scanning capabilities and you download the form, fill it out and sign it, you can scan it and email it to the board. You obviously can't email your ballot, but you can email your ballot request as long as it has your signature on it. So, and in fact, you also can request a ballot without any form. You can request a ballot by sending a letter, but I don't want to make it too complicated for everybody. I think you guys are doing a very good job of getting the word out. I would be happy to answer any questions that you all have. And as Linda mentioned, we'll have more time for that on Friday, and hopefully we'll have more information by then as well.
Okay, so now I'm going to open it up to questions. It is 8:58. We're going to go to 9:08 with questions. Anybody have questions? What?
I was.
Go ahead, Laura.
I was just going to ask David, given that there are so many different issues, if you could tell us if there are one or two that you are most concerned about, and also if there is more that we can do to help on these issues that you raised.
Yeah, my biggest issue right now is that I want our board and staff to get the word out as best as we can. And we have a bit of a disagreement because our staff wants us to wait and hear what they have to say. And my view is that we should be telling people what we know when we know it. And then when there's more information, we give you that. The other issue that I have that I'm pushing very hard on and hoping that I'm going to be successful, there is a tendency on the part of our staff, and not just our staff, the state staff as well, to steer people towards the method of voting that is best for us, meaning the one that is, like suggesting that people use the online request rather than the PDF so that we don't have to read people's handwriting, et cetera. And my own view is that we should be doing what's best for the voters. And when we can accomplish both at the same time, I have no problem with making recommendations to people. And I think you all have heard me. I recommend very strongly that everybody get their ballot by US mail and not get it electronically unless you don't have a place to receive US mail. But I don't think that you should do that because you want to spare me from spending the month of November duplicating ballots. That's part of my job. I think that you should do that because you want to get the envelope that's pre-addressed with the postage that's prepaid with the oath on the envelope, so you don't have to figure out too much. You can just kind of do it and put it back in the mail. And my hope is that we will communicate in that fashion to everybody kind of what is going on with that. I would say just keep getting the word out. I would say encourage everyone to do everything early. If they're going to vote during early voting, don't wait until election day and don't wait until the last day. Kind of do it. Maybe not the first 2 hours because it'll be really crowded during the first 2 hours, but do that early. If you're going to vote by mail, don't wait to request your ballot until the middle of October. At the latest that people should do it is when they get the application in the mail that's going to get mailed to everyone. And of course, you can also make those requests, sooner. I mean, basically, since we don't know what the mail is going to look like, since we don't know what the counting is going to look like, et cetera, the earlier the people act, especially since most people seem to know who they're going to vote for, the more smoothly it'll go for everybody. And people will avoid crowds that way as well.
Thank you, David. And a quick follow-up. Do you have any idea of the time range when people may be getting the application for, a vote by mail ballot in the mail? Because I've been asked that a number of times.
I can tell you what we've been told, but as you may recall from the primary, what we're told is not necessarily what ends up happening. What we were told is that they're going to mail out the applications between the 28th and 31st of August. I don't know how long that means that it takes for it to arrive. In the past, election mail has gotten preferred treatment. We don't know what 2020 will be like in that category. But I would say that people should be looking for the application in the early part of September. And that's if they don't want to go ahead and do it themselves. Supposedly, if you do it yourself earlier, you will not get it in the mail if you do it early enough. We really don't want people to do more than one method. In other words, if you request the ballot, don't request it a second time. Because again, if you request the ballot, you should get one. If you don't, it should come in the mail. The question in the chat from Marie, will the voting sites be the same for early voting and election day? That's to be decided by the state board, I believe, tomorrow. but the proposal that they made to the governor was the 11 early voting sites, which would be the same sites that we had in 2018, except that the Wheaton site moves from the church where we had it in 2018 to the new rec center. And on election day, we would add the 25 public high schools. And anyone would be able to vote anywhere on election day. It would not be, we would not have that massive redistricting that would be a total mess if the governor had not gone along. You may have noticed that the governor blamed the state board for changing their mind about their position, but of course they changed their mind in order to accommodate him. I think it was actually a good thing that they changed their mind, and that it was the recommendation that was made by all the local election officials. Susie asked where the application forms are being mailed from. I believe they are being mailed from out of state. I am not certain of that. I know that the company that got the contract is a company called Runbeck. We've had issues with Runbeck before, but we've had issues with everyone before. I'm not certain as to where they're coming from. Okay, I can.
And David, did you see Faith Blackburn's question?
I'm going down the list right now.
Okay.
Can you request a ballot by phone? I don't believe you can request a ballot by phone because they need to get a signature. I believe you can get an application by phone, but I'm not certain of that one. Justin Wilson, early voting is actually not likely to be October 22 to 29. That was the original schedule. The schedule that we're looking at now is October 29 to November 2nd, and then election day on November 3rd, where you will still be able to vote at the early voting locations. It will be essentially 6 days of early voting instead of 8, but they'll be all in a row leading up to election day, with election day having 36 locations instead of 11. Yes, Michael said, yes, you can call the board, but I don't believe they'll send you the ballot. I believe they'll send you the
Yeah, he said you corrected him.
Okay.
Susie asks.
Will all ballots be mailed on the same day?
Yeah.
Can't imagine that would be true. First of all, we can't mail them all on the same day because we won't get they won't be all requested on the same day. I certainly hope they won't all be mailed on the same day. But will they do like they did last time and save Montgomery County for last? Not if I have anything to say about it. I haven't heard yet what the plan is for that, but I think that they should all be mailed shortly within. They should start mailing them all around the same time with each other. The location of the voting precincts influences how locations will be staffed.
Yeah, that's just a comment from Marjorie about that. And then Erwin has a question.
Okay, there were allegations that the ballots may have been mailed to MoCo last intentionally. I don't believe that's the case, but I haven't heard the evidence. If you have it, I would love to know it because Baltimore City also got it late. I don't believe that was a political decision because I don't believe it was made by politicians. I believe that was a decision that was made by career staff, many of whom would not have been inclined to disadvantage one party or the other.
And then the last question from Susie.
Okay.
Ballot application forms.
What about them?
I think what she's saying is when she asked about ballots, she meant ballot application forms. Are they all going to be mailed at once?
I don't know, but what I saw was all within that time frame, August 28th to August 31st. That's what we were told.
Okay. All right. Well, to be continued, right?
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And we will see you on Friday.
We'll see me on Friday. I'll stay a little bit longer to answer chat questions.
Yeah, you can put questions in the chat for David if you want.
Okay. And I appreciate everybody's interest. I know there's a lot of questions out there, and I hope to have more answers by Friday. And then we also have a board meeting on Monday. So if you have ideas that you want me to, questions you want me to bring up on Monday, bring them on Friday, and that will help us to get ready for Monday.
Right, and Laura has a question in the chat that you might want to address.
Absolutely. Although you're gonna require me to comment on the Trump administration, it's a little dangerous for me.
Okay. So anyway, we will have this meeting on Friday at 5:30, and hopefully, following the state meeting, David and his colleagues will have more information from us, and maybe we'll have a very clear picture of where we want to go. So Mark Hoffman, you wanted to talk a little bit about voter protection.
Thank you. Yeah, we haven't really been talking very much to the large meeting here because the general scope of the election has been changing so much. So what I want to make sure is that if any of you have any ideas and comments or want to participate, that certainly, you're more than welcome. What I say about voter protection is let's not fight the last war. The worst thing that can happen is the thing we don't expect, like the contractor doesn't mail out ballots, things like that. So it's very important to have a lot of people who have their eyes on the situation so that if there is anything odd, they can bring to our attention. One thing I want to mention is that the governor's letters have been pretty petulant, but I actually agree with a lot of the issues that he brings up, that our election is in great danger of having big problems. So, our efforts to get people to request ballots right now are just that much more important. One thing I wanted to bring up, because Linda wanted to talk about action items, is that the rule for the June 2nd election was that we would not ask any of our volunteers to go to the polls. And I wanted to bring that up because we had a couple people go to the polls, very important, on June 2nd. And I think it's going to be very important to have that field force looking at the situation at the polls on October 29th through November 3rd. Volunteers who are, of course, apprised of what they need to do as far as PPE. And I just want to say another issue is, and reminded that they could be poll workers if they're available for that. I don't want to do anything reduce the number of poll workers, because that's so important. But after this discussion tonight, what I'll do is go out and be looking for the volunteers to be our field force. And I'm glad that David Shoemaker had mentioned the precinct workers, because they're very important. But that's what I wanted to about people being invited to go to the polls in person. Now, one other thing before I stop, and I haven't really talked to anyone about this, is that in the June 2nd election, there was a governor's proclamation in which certain in-person requirements were suspended and allowed to be by video. And that has not been done for this election. So maybe David has comment, maybe David has comment. But it appears that the canvass, the counting of the ballots, that maybe it might be available by video, but there is no suspension requirement that observers be allowed to observe the canvass. And my opinion of the video canvass, not only in Montgomery County, I looked at it in other places as well, was that the video observation was not adequate, because you really couldn't tell what was going on.
Okay. Well, thank you. Those are issues that we need to consider. And as Dave pointed out, I do think the best place to discuss this is the precinct steering committee, at least initially, because that's where we draw our volunteers for the polls. In terms of our volunteers, not poll workers. Okay. I really do think that that's a good place to start that discussion. But I'm going to tell you that there is a lot of angst, that's putting it mildly, about appearing at the polls in person for prolonged periods of time. So we have to figure that out. You know, that's about, I think that's about the best we can do tonight. Susie.
A quick request, and that is just to whatever goes on with this at the precinct organization committee, please bring us back a report so that this committee knows what's going on.
Of course, but the problem is we're not sure what we're doing. It's hard to figure it out. I mean, the Board of Elections is having a hard time figuring it out. We're having a hard time figuring it out as the precinct steering committee.
I realize.
You know.
To speak to these matters, in the Voter Protection Committee, another whole area of things is what our authority is. Because we've noticed in other, and it's in the report as well.
Is this a new topic? I mean, what do you mean what our authority is?
Well, it's part of the discussion.
Okay, well, we can, we can have that discussion. I guess what I'm saying is that if we're talking about having volunteers at the polls, which is what I think what we were talking about, this is something that we're going to have to work through a little bit. And then, when we have a clear picture of what we're doing here, how many voting sites, I mean, we sort of know, but where they are and that kind of thing, we'll look at it again and move on from there. Moomin.
Yeah, so I'm just wondering, the state party has a voter protection committee. How do we avoid any sort of a duplication of resources and effort here? If the state party is going to roll out voter protection committee throughout the state, and here as MCDCC, we have voter protection committee, how do we make sure that we're not duplicating in resources and effort?
I'm going to ask Susie to answer that.
We have me acting as a liaison between the two. That's how I share information from one to the other if there's information that needs to be shared. The only duplication that we have really at this point is the fact that we both have voter protection hotlines. That's it.
So, I'm going to ask that Susie continue to play that role and keep us informed of what's going on at the State Voter Protection Committee. And it's a good point, Moomin. We do need to coordinate with that, with what's going on there, and we don't need to reinvent the wheel. That part's true. Anything else?
Well, on one final point, I know Mark requested a meeting with representatives of the State Voter Protection Committee, but he never got a response. I know that.
Well, I didn't know that Mark had requested that meeting. And I don't know if Susie knew that Mark had requested that meeting, but that's the way that you get a meeting, is you go through me or you go through Susie.
Yeah, I did not know.
Anything else on voter protection? Okay, good. And let me just make one other point about voter protection. I think part of it is, to Moomin's question, here in Montgomery County, our central committee, at least in the primary, we defined voter protection more broadly to kind of include voter education, because we're talking about possible voter suppression. And as a result, I think we do more than the state party does. I think the state party may view it, Susie can correct me if I'm wrong, may view it in a more narrow way than we have been doing it here. And I'm not saying that's right or wrong, I'm just saying that that's what it is. And we are going to be working, by the way, on a frequently asked questions like we did for the primary election. Mark has done a draft. He's given it to Michael. Michael and I are going to work on it. And, you know, hopefully we'll have something, you know, like we had in the primary that was, you know, I think pretty excellent, actually. And, you know, we're just waiting for clarity because it's been so crazy, right? It's been back and forth and the details are have been pretty sketchy, although they're coming together now. I think at the end of this week, or at least at the beginning of next week, we'll have a pretty clear idea of where we are. Marie Mapes wants to make a comment.
Hey, Linda, maybe it's more like a question. I'm really excited that there would be a FAQ out there because I thought it was really useful last time. Do you think that maybe we have, at least at this point, we have a little bit of clarity, but maybe after when would you think would be the time to put out the first FAQ? Because this is probably going to be.
Yeah, I know.
You know.
I mean, I think for, you know, so here's the thing, it's a bandwidth thing, right? So, you know, having the time to do it, I gotta defer to Michael and say, when do you think we can have the FAQs done?
Well, that's a fair thing.
Yeah, when do you think we can have the FAQs done, Michael?
Well, I know Mark is still working on it. As soon as we get it from Mark, then in about a week.
Okay, so Mark, get it to Michael tomorrow, please.
You're muted, Mark.
I think it will be sometime after the state board meets because we don't even know actually.
Well, then get it to Michael on Thursday.
Yeah.
Okay, please.
Sure.
Okay, David Shoemaker.
Right. Thank you, Linda. I just wanted to add the point that I don't think it needs to be all at once. You know, we're going to go through stages of messaging here, and right now the focus is on how people apply for their ballots. So, you know, in order not to hold things up, I think it would be perfectly reasonable to put out FAQs dealing just with how do you apply for your ballot, and then all the other stuff about, you know, how do you vote and what the in-person options are and all that, that can come later. That's my comment.
I have a comment about, I have some.
Okay, go ahead, Harold.
I have some reservations about how I'm going to tell everybody in Leisure World where there are 3 precincts and no high schools nearby, that they all have to get out to early vote by writing.
Vote by mail.
The vote by mail. And I don't know if they'll all do that. Some of them want to go. I don't even know where to assign people to go because I don't know what schools we really need to have coverages on.
Well, that's what we need to figure out. And we have been having discussions. And again, this is something that the precinct steering committee has been talking about for weeks. And it's been changing a little bit, but you know, we're going to figure it out. And then, you know, the whole question of Leisure World, I do know that the Leisure World, Democratic Club of Leisure World has been quite active in trying to get people to apply for their ballots. And Roger and Paul are very much aware, and Sandy are very much aware of what is going on. And, you know, I think I will speak for this committee and say that we stand ready to partner with them to help us get as many people to the polls as we can from Leisure World. You know, either virtually or in person.
Yeah, so that's been one of the biggest, highest voting percentage of people actually voting.
No, I know.
In the county. And I'm just concerned that I'm not going to have people at some of these places because I don't know where they are. I can't go recruiting people to be coming.
Well, don't worry about it yet until we figure out. We're going to have fewer polling sites for one thing. So
I heard that, and my feeling is it isn't going to come out the way they think it's going to come out. That each district has roughly three high schools. I don't I don't think that's true. I think it's a different mix, and they're not going to have.
Well, it is what it is, and we're going to find out what it is this week for sure. Susie.
Linda, David Naiman has answered Harold in the chat.
Oh, thank you. What did David Naiman say?
David Naiman
he said,
made some
go ahead.
suggestions.
Go ahead.
First off, I would say that it's a prime territory for voting by mail, and there's a post office that's right in Leisure World. Secondly, I would say that we would be having early voting, which will go through Election Day at the Mid-County Community Rec Center, which is not too far from Leisure World. Third, I would say that, yes, this is a problem, that Leisure World has a lot of voters, and we don't have a high school that's very close. The community center is probably going to be the closest location, and maybe some clever community organizers will figure out how to get voters from Leisure World to nearby polling places.
Okay. All right. Okay. We need to move on now. All right. Anything else? We've spent a long time on the election. That's good though, because it's very important. We are having this meeting on Friday. I just remind you. And of course, if you want to, submit some questions and you can't be there and you want to send questions to me, please let me know. Yeah, Mark put in the chat that he'll bring your scanner. Guys, let's not do anything till we coordinate with the Democratic Club of Leisure World, okay? Because they have a system there that they use to contact their people, and they do a pretty darn good job of getting people out. And I don't want to do anything without coordinating with them. Okay, so now I'm going to move on to old business. I may have mentioned this before. I think you probably all got an email on it. I just want to mention that we are having a trustees meeting on Thursday at 7 o'clock. We're probably going to, what I'd like to do is ask them to participate in some targeted election activity, like maybe an evening of phone canvassing, or something like that, or letter writing. I'm also going to ask them if they can have a little fundraising drive for us to maybe help us pay a couple months rent. That's the trustees meeting. Everyone here is welcome to attend. It's kind of fun. We're going to have to compress it a little bit because Erwin has his important ballot committee meeting after that. And because of the time frame there, we are, as he said, it's compressed. And so we need to have that meeting on Thursday. So please show up. I think everybody got the Zoom information. Marjorie's helping me with trustees. Marjorie, do you have anything that you want to add about trustees?
No, you did a good job.
So stay on the line there. We're going to move to the sample ballot, which is the next item on the agenda. The sample ballot, Marjorie, will you just talk briefly about your conversation with the electeds?
Sure. We have decided to try something new this time, to cut down on our printing costs and to be able to use the sample ballot for more voter education purposes. What we have discussed with the congressional campaigns is the possibility of doing the sample ballot as a postcard, referring people to a website that we're going to put up that will have all of the other information that people need, including the sample, the ballot question, positions, where to vote, how to register. I mean, if we get it out early enough, we can also do it as voter education for mailing voting. The three congressional campaigns are very excited by this. They like the idea that it's going to be a voter education piece. We can personalize what's mailed out by congressional district. And, obviously for the ballot question initiative information, since that's going to be the last piece that's going to be dropped in, we can actually start working on this stuff now.
Yes. And Arthur and Marjorie have agreed to be on the committee to help us with this. And Michael and I had some preliminary discussions about getting this set up. So I think the four of us, Arthur, Marjorie, Michael, and myself, probably should get together within the next week or so and map it out, our plan, and then go from there if that's okay with you folks. Does that sound good?
Sounds good.
Okay. All right. I will be in touch. I'll try to set something. We'll do something. We'll pick dates tomorrow. Okay. Any questions about the sample ballot or the trustees meeting? I'm trying to find something here.
I have a sample ballot question.
Yeah, go ahead, Aaron.
By doing sample ballot light, if you will, Marjorie, postcard that directs them to the website, what is the savings? How much money are we going to save? About?
We haven't priced it out yet, but it's a huge printing savings as well as the postage savings. And that's where most of the money goes into the sample ballot, in terms of the postage and the mailing.
Okay, do you think you'll have the figures by next meeting or the October meeting or something?
Well, I can answer that. I think we need to have them at the next meeting.
Yeah.
If not before, because the electeds want to know, right?
Right. Because we're still going to ask them to participate in helping us to mail it.
Right.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, next on the agenda is something called Maryland electors. And I'm going to put this up on the screen here. So I got this from the state party. This is more of a heads up than anything. We're not really going to be taking action on this because we can do this at our September meeting. Our September meeting comes before the deadline here, which is September 15th. They are asking us to nominate candidates for presidential electors from the different districts. So I wanted to bring this to your attention. It's been sent to all of you in your packet. I want you to think of names or nominees of people that we could nominate for this. I'm going to put in a personal point of privilege that this is something, I don't like to run for many different things, but this is something I'd really like to do. Unless, of course, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris don't win our state, then I would not like to do it, but I don't think that's likely to happen. So, so this is something that I'm going to put myself forward for. But I would say that if you're interested in doing this, and I will flog you again on this, if you're interested in putting forth names, that we should put forth names for our 3 congressional districts so that we can submit them to the state party. So be thinking about that. Like I said, it's in your packet. I'll flog you again about it. I shouldn't say flog. I'll flag you again about it. And we want to, this is something that I guess under the state party rules we do. That doesn't mean that our people will be selected, but I do think that, at least in the 6th and the 8th district, that, our nominees should be high up on the list with the state party. So anyway, 3 congressional districts, we get to recommend 3 electors here. So I'll send it out again, but I did want to put it on your radar. Are there any questions about this? Okay, good. All right, moving on. Signs and masks. Greg Wims is like, what about the mask? What about the mask? All right, so let me talk about signs first, then we'll talk about the masks. The signs, people say, where are the signs? Where are the signs? Where are the signs? Where can we get signs? Where can we get signs? Well, you can order signs from the Joe Biden website. Those are $25 plus shipping. The state party is going to do signs. And what they've asked each central committee to do is request a number of signs. They're going to do them at cost. We will then give a donation to the state party that matches the cost. It'll be somewhere in the neighborhood of $2 to $3 per sign, which is really pretty cheap. And we may charge an additional $2 or $3 handling fee from the central committee as a donation to us here at the central committee. So I have requested 1,000 signs from the state party. I've also requested, those are just your regular yard signs. It will include the wire, okay? So they were waiting until Vice President Biden announced his running mate, who we all know now is Kamala Harris, yay. And so I assume that they're going to go forward now and get the signs printed. And it shouldn't be very long until we have them. We may need help distributing them, so we'll have to figure that out. But you know, that might be something for the precinct organization to help out with a little bit, as well as we may have volunteers who maybe can help us do that. But anyway, we'll figure that part out. The state party also said that they would help us deliver them. I mean, they're not going to just like come and dump them on us. They can put them in different places. So I may be reaching out to you and saying, would anybody like to take, like Girl Scout cookies, right? Would anybody like to take, you know, $30 of Girl Scout cookies or 30 signs at your house and then help us distribute them? So that's on signs. Masks. Susie, put on your mask.
Yay, Susie.
Yeah, there's her. There is the mask. These are just plain cotton masks. I think everybody's seen them. We have them available on the website. We have sold, we announced it on Friday that we were doing these. This is the Blue Wave mask. You see the blue wave over the D? We announced on Friday that we were doing these. And after we announced them, we had record number of orders. And we are now up to, the mask cost us, 500 masks cost us $2,118. We have so far collected $4,665. We are out of masks, so I have ordered more. And we are talking about perhaps going national and maybe advertising them on Facebook and, you know, to other central committees, because they're pretty generic, right? And they're kind of cool. So please buy masks and also advertise masks. And I'm going to call on our fundraising chair, since this was our main fundraising activity this month. Greg, Greg, do you want to say anything about masks?
I just want to say that this is the best thing that ever happened. People, I don't have my mask because I had to give it to my coworker. He had to have it. People want these masks. So the one thing I would say to all the Central Committee members, if all of us could buy the masks by next meeting, I'd like to take a group picture with on the screen on the Zoom.
On the Zoom,
with all
yeah.
of us with
That's a
our
good
masks
idea.
on, and we can send that out. But it is great, and so I wanted to tell everyone too, Linda thought of this. So thank you, Linda, for the mask idea, because it's a home run already. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, it is kind of cool.
Linda?
Yes, go ahead,
It's
Pam.
Pam. So do you have the mask still? I thought you said you were out. How can we get them by the next meeting? You'll have some.
By the next meeting, I have some more on order. They'll be in the office by the 19th or 20th. We will have another shipment. So,
Okay.
We have, I mean, we haven't mailed out the ones, we're trying to mail out the ones that we have. Rochelle came back. I'm going to talk about that in a second, but Rochelle came back. And the first thing she did was start to prepare masks to be mailed. So we haven't mailed any of the ones that have been ordered out yet. We're in the process of doing that. We're trying to get, trying to get it all squared away. And we're going to try to use bulk mail to do it. But we are making a pretty good little profit on them.
Good.
So yeah,
Great.
we're getting more. Who did the design? Dave Shoemaker asked. Who do you think? Michael Tardif did the design, with a little help from the print shop, Tri-State Printing in Hagerstown. And by the way, on their website, they had the cutest little thing. They were so excited about the mask. They put the mask, and then you all seen Bob's Furniture, the little guy from Bob's Furniture. They put a little thing like that, a little cardboard cutout of the owner of Tri-State Printing amid all the masks on the table, and that's how they're advertising it. And then they, they referred to our Facebook page. So maybe we'll get some more sales out of that. Anyway, the masks are fun, and thanks to everybody who's helping with them. And how many masks were in the first order? 500, and I ordered 500 more. And I think I may have to end up ordering more than that. I didn't order more than 500 because the price break wasn't that good on 750 and 1,000. So I decided to just go with 500 at a time. I'm sure the print shop will do 500 more for us. And yes, we had them printed at a union print shop. They have the union bug on them. People are ordering in bulk. You can order up to 15 at a time per. So it's like $100 will get you 15, which Greg Wims ordered. He was the first $15 order, or 15 mask order we had. Okay, so again, we're going to put them in the newsletter. And the only issue is that poor Rochelle has to deal with mailing all of these. We're putting them all in little bags. It's very cute. They have washing instructions on them. It's fun. All right. Anything else on the masks? Okay, great. Thanks.
Everybody
Next.
needs to get one.
Yeah, everybody needs to get one. Susie's right. They're actually pretty comfortable. They don't fit everybody. You might have to adjust them a little bit because they're not elastic, but they're very comfortable. They're really nice. They're 100% cotton. They're really nice. And they're big. See how big they are on Susie's face? They're big. So, yeah. So anyway, okay. Thanks for all that. We may do a mask and sign package too, by the way. So that was Dave Kuhn's idea. I mentioned that the office is open. It's open for phone communication only. We put it in the newsletter. We'll probably repeat that in the newsletter about the office hours. Rochelle's there. Yay, Rochelle's back. She's there from 10:30 to 3:30 or 4 o'clock, thereabouts. Only telephone communication though. If you have an absolute need to come into the office, you must call Rochelle before you come in. The JCA has a rule of only 25 people in the building at a time. So they need to know if somebody's coming in. So the days of popping in to say hi are not now. So if you're gonna come in, and certainly Central Committee members are welcome to come in, you must call Rochelle and tell her that you're coming. Otherwise, unless there is a specific reason, like we have been bringing in volunteers to do masks, unless there's a specific reason, we are not going to have people in the office at this time. And anybody who comes in the office must wear a mask. That's another reason to buy one. There is hand sanitizer, and but we do have to sanitize any surfaces that we use in the common areas. So, so anyway, the message is call Rochelle if you're coming in the office so she can tell them that we're there and we don't add to exceeding the 25-person limit. I'm just going to mention really briefly the Democratic National Convention. Everybody knows that's coming up next week. The state party's offering a package that if you give the $100 donation, you can attend all the events with all of the different luminaries who are there. And it also includes a talent show, where you get to see Marylanders displaying their best talents. And I think Biden's acceptance speech is Thursday. So the schedule is out, and it's you can find it on the Maryland Democratic Party website and also on the DNC website. So that's exciting, especially now since we've had that that exciting announcement today. Does anybody have any other announcements before we adjourn? All right. Oh, I'm sorry, Justin, I forgot. Oh, I told you to remind me. Go ahead. Very important. Very important. Go ahead.
I sent you a reminder, but you were very, very busy.
Go ahead.
So guys, as everybody probably knows, the Maryland Democratic Party is doing swing state phone banks. We're also doing in-state phone banks, and I was slightly worried about the election coming up, and then I talked to Paul Ellis, Jamie Raskin's campaign manager, and he explained the situation to me. And I'm extremely concerned about this upcoming election, not only because of the election itself being a problem, but I'm very concerned about if the government breaks faith with the electorate over voting, it could really have some really damaging effects on our country. And so I've been doing in-county phone banks Monday through Saturday. Michael Baird, my boss, wrote up a really good script. We've got a couple quick hits in there. One is texting VBM, vote by mail, to 77788. We also have a mention in there of I will vote. This is just such a hugely important issue, and we've got problems on both ends. Our governor, in his infinite wisdom, decided to send out the applications for ballots instead of sending out the ballots. And then on the other side, we're down 14,000 election judges. And I just have nightmares about Maryland looking like Georgia did a couple months ago with those long, those lines look like they were a mile long. And so, we've had a really good response with the volunteers. And if you could spread it around your network, I know you're all very busy, but if you could spare just a couple hours a week to raise awareness on this important issue, it would be really good. So that's my pitch. I'll put my contact info in the box.
Yes, please do that. And just to remind you, Justin has been doing this since when? Since
early
March?
Yeah, early March.
Early March.
And I'll give a shout out to Linda. She participated. So she's so in leadership. I hope you guys will follow her example.
And so Justin is doing the in-state phone banks. That's an opportunity to educate voters about the election and calling your neighbors and so forth. Our precinct organization is also doing some of those kinds of calls. But in addition to that, as Justin mentioned, Michael Baird, right now it's 3 days a week doing export calls. There's a day of action for Maine. What day is that, Justin?
I don't have that in front of me, Linda. I'm sorry.
It just came out tonight.
Friday.
I'm sorry?
It's Friday.
Friday, thank you. So that's Friday, and that's calling into Maine to get votes for Sarah Gideon, as well as Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. And we are sending out, as Michael says, an action alert to our Volunteer Action Network about the Maine Day of Action. The state party is going to kick it up a notch now. And Michael, as well as Justin, are going to be doing phone banks 7 days a week coming here shortly together. So we do need to get, this is the coordinated campaign that we would be used to, right? Going into headquarters and doing canvassing. And actually, I heard this on a Women for Biden meeting, which is a group I belong to as well, where we talked about it. Don't think of it as phone banking. It's virtual canvassing, because we cannot go door to door in this climate. But what we can do is we can get on the phone and we can talk to people. And people, you still have trouble getting people on the phone, no question. But people are a lot more willing to talk to you now because they're a little bit lonely, especially in some of these states. Like I called into Florida a few weeks ago, and they just wanted to talk, because, they were scared and they were starting to hunker down and, so, and I think with this announcement of Kamala Harris, I think this week, and then the Democratic convention, you're going to get a lot of excited Democrats who are going to want to talk to you. So get out there and phone bank, as Justin said, get the word out about what our voters in Maryland need to know. Let's help the state party out here. They're working around the clock on this stuff, and we need to pitch in and help them. Anything else on that? By the way, it's fun. Go ahead, Harold.
Has anybody asked you the question, which is my wife's first question? Who is Kamala's husband, or is there one? Does she have kids? Things like that. Do you have any information on that?
She does.
Harold, Google it.
Google it. Thank you, Moomin. Google it.
Thank you very much. That's why my wife asked me as if I'm the expert in these things, and I haven't the slightest idea.
I know. Well,
And you're not giving me an answer either.
Well, we're trying to hide the fact that she has a husband. But anyway,
he has 2 stepchildren and a Jewish doctor husband, I think is what I heard.
Something, I don't know.
And the fact that her husband was very good friends, made very good friends on the campaign trail with Jill Biden did not exactly hurt matters.
Yeah. But anyway, okay. So David Naiman found an article in Oprah magazine.
Yes, she has 2 stepchildren and her husband.
2 stepchildren and her husband.
Thank
so
you.
that makes her a better candidate.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I agree with Michael Tardif. Why are we asking those questions?
I'm just telling you this. The first thing my wife asked me, and I thought
How
to
many
myself,
children does Mike Pence have? Anyway.
I have no idea.
He has a son who's a Marine Corps pilot.
Oh, good.
And I don't care. I hope Mr. Pence lives a long life out of the White House.
Anyway.
Linda, move for adjournment.
Thank you, Greg. Greg moves for adjournment. Is there a second?
Second, Daniel.
Bye. Bye, everybody. See you Friday. Thank you. Great meeting.
Oh my God.
All right, Mike.
Bye, everybody.
Goodbye.
Good night, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.